Hey everybody, Pete Meyer, Motor Age Magazine here. Kind of a little different format for our videos, and there's a different reason for this one. You know, I spent 35 years as a tech, and while I enjoy the challenge of finding and fixing those tough little bugs that customers brought in, really the last thing I wanted to do at the end of my workday was to go home and have to do it on my own. Well, that's the situation I find myself in today on our Ford Ranger pickup here. But you know, I thought if I'm going to go through this on my own, let me share that with all of you. Maybe go through my diagnostic process, how I tackle these kind of problems, get your feedback, see what you guys and gals think, and maybe together we just might learn something. Stay tuned. All right, even though it's my personal car, let's just treat it like it was any other car brought into your shop by any customer that comes through the door. It is a 99 Ford Ranger equipped with a 3.0 liter V6 engine, automatic transmission, four-wheel drive. The customer complaint, the check engine light is on, and they also noticed that when they start it up in the morning, or after it's been sitting for an extended period of time, the engine runs a little rough, sometimes very rough, for a little while, then seems to smooth out and everything goes away and seems to run just fine. So that's where we're going to start, and my first step in the process is to find out why the check engine light's on. To do that, I'm going to use the LaunchTech USA X431 pad. It's a Android operating system, and uses a Bluetooth dongle. If I can put my hand on that. Oh yeah. Then we're just going to plug into the OBD2 port. And then we'll turn the key on and we'll pull some codes. Now, the nice thing about the X431 or any of the current scan tools that make use of that Bluetooth connection is I don't have to be sitting in the seat or in the car to operate the tool. I can take it with me under the hood to my workbench, wherever else is convenient for me to be able to access the information and within range of that dongle. Now, there's a full menu on this particular tool. Again, as is with most aftermarket tools, it has both global OBD2 and enhanced data, which means more factory-specific data. I always like to start by going into global OBD2 mode, and I'll tell you why. A couple of reasons. The format is standardized. No matter what the vehicle make is, I can access codes, I can clear that information, I can check freeze frame data, I can look at the monitor status, I can look at mode 6, I can look at a whole lot of different things, all standard across the board. Doesn't matter whether it's Audi or Yugo or anything in between. Another great advantage to the OBD2 global platform, all the data that you see in current data is just that, current accurate data. Some of you are familiar that many factories will put in a substitute data. If there's a problem with, say, an engine coolant temperature sensor or a MAF sensor or something along those lines. So what you're seeing on there, if that part has failed and it's using that substituted value, you're going to see that substituted value. You might miss what's actually wrong. Can't do that here in global mode. So we'll go ahead and get into global. Whole list of protocols shown here on the screen. If I knew what it is right offhand, I could go ahead and pick that. I'm just going to go ahead and let it figure that out for itself. It'll start searching through the different protocols. Of course, a lot of the stuff they're working on now is on CAN. That's going to be very easy to get to, but if you're working on an older vehicle like this 99 model, there are some other protocols that it could be using. Okay, and we have a winner. Basic global OBD2 menu, the modes 1 through now 10 on some late models. Older models, only 9 modes available. What we want to look at first is what are the current trouble codes. I want to know what's got the light turned on. I also want to know if there's any codes that are pending, that first trip of a 2-trip failure that might be in the system as well. So let's start with the hard codes. That's in mode 3. And we have 2. I have a P0455, evap emission system leak detected, large leak, and a P0302, cylinder 2 misfire detected. Now let's talk a little bit about those codes. A P0 code is a standardized code format with standardized I don't want to use the term definitions, but descriptions. As I just read, for example, the 0455 EVAS system, large leak detected. But you know, that can be misleading, as you'll see as we go along. Don't rely on that description to be the code definition that you're going to use for your troubleshooting procedures. Same with the cylinder 2 misfire. That's a standardized code. That's pretty simple, but there's a lot of different things that can affect that cylinder 2 misfire. Again, as we'll see as we continue on the process, don't rely on just that alone. But now that I know what I have here, let's back out of that. We'll check for pending, see if there's anything else hiding in there. Nothing in pending, so we're good there. All right, another word on those codes. Now, I admit, the light's been on for quite a bit. So the vehicle's been started and stopped several times since the light first appeared, which means that either one of those codes could have been set and no longer exists, or could have been set for quite a long while and have continued to be a problem. I don't really know that for sure at this point. I could go ahead and clear the codes and see which ones come back, but in the case of the EVAP emissions, if you're at all familiar with how those codes are run on some of these older vehicles, it could go a month before turning that light back on because the problem hadn't been redetected. I'll explain that more as we go through this process. So just keep that in mind. This is just a starting point. Still got a long ways to go. How about freeze frame? I think I want to take a look at freeze frame. And we're going to look at the current data, current history. And forgive me, I'm not really phrasing that as properly as I should. Some of the older OBD2 systems can only hold a freeze frame record. Now, we have a lot of information on our website about what codes are non-continuous monitors and which codes are continuous monitors. And what that means is a continuous code, in this case the 302 for example, is one that's continuously being tested over and over and over again as the vehicle runs. The non-continuous monitor, well, the EVAP code is under that category. It only runs once during any given drive cycle and only will set if the entire sequence of tests has been performed during that drive cycle. Okay, you with me? That means it could have set a long time ago and it's still in memory, but the tests have never completed again to clear that code back out. This comes in with your basic knowledge of how global OBD2 works. If either one of these codes is tested again 3 times in a row and passes, the light will go off. The code will remain, though, in memory in mode 3 for another 37 cycles before it is finally removed. Okay? So what I'm trying to surmise here will get you to kind of understand with me here. Freeze frame is a snapshot of what was going on with the vehicle at that time that the code matured, turned the light on. If it's a non-continuous monitor code like the EVAP code, I really don't care if there's any freeze frame data associated with that code because I'm not trying to mimic the way the vehicle was being operated to find and fix it. I know and I can look up what the test procedures that the ECM uses to test for that code, and I can mimic those in the bay. I don't have to wait for it to go through a drive cycle. And again, it doesn't matter to me how the vehicle was driven. That just happens to be a part of the series of tests that the BCM is performing. I'll try to explain that a little bit more too as we get to that. We take a closer look at that. The 302, on the other hand, though, is a continuous monitor. That means it's being checked at idle, it's being checked at cruise speed, it's being checked under load, it's being checked under every load RPM combination you can think of. Looking at the freeze frame is going to give me an idea of how the vehicle was being operated when that misfire occurred. Did it only occur when the vehicle was going 60 miles an hour down the highway? Did it only occur when the vehicle was under a lot of stress, trying to pull a trailer up a hill? Or did it occur only at idle when there's really no load and very little going on in terms of the amount of fuel or amount of air being taken in by the engine? So looking at the freeze frame data, I can see that engine coolant temperature was only 82 degrees, which for me, that's a cold soak. That's sitting overnight. So the engine hadn't even had a chance to warm up. It was misfiring almost right off the bat. It was, engine RPM was 1369, say 1370. Fast idle, so again, right when the engine first started up. It had gone long enough, though, for the fuel system to go into closed loop. We'll take a look then at the long-term fuel trim, short-term fuel trim together. Not bad. Recorded long-term fuel trim 0.78. That's nothing. Long-term fuel trim on both banks 3%, 3.9%. Again, not a big deal. Well within those parameters. Not much clue there either. And the vehicle speed sensor is telling me the vehicle wasn't moving. So this is when it's sitting here in my driveway and I first started up and the vehicle's chucking and bucking. It's setting that misfire code, and then after a few minutes it clears. Those are already some troubleshooting tips I'm going to start to store in the back of my mind, or if necessary, write down, so that I can take a look at the big picture before I even open the hood and start doing any specific troubleshooting. If you can't print out the freeze frame data, take your smartphone out, take a picture of it so that you have it. Don't clear any of these codes until we're ready to verify the repair has been completed, because if I clear the code, I'm going to erase the freeze frame with it, and I'm also going to reset the monitors that were responsible for setting that code in the first place. I may want to go back and look at some other data yet, not sure. So there we go, looking at the scan tool. We'll take a quick look at the PIDs and see if there's anything else I want to see right now. Not really, can't think of anything at this point. I know where I'm starting out. I've got a P0455 evap code and a P0302 misfire code that I'm going to be dealing with on the Ranger. Okay, now that I've got a basic idea of what codes I'm dealing with, I think the next thing I want to take a look at is maybe a brief visual inspection under the hood. Primarily for the 302 code, maybe a little bit for the 455 code. I'm just kind of getting a feel if there's anything obvious, anything that stands out. What kind of overall condition is the vehicle in? How has it been maintained? That kind of thing. So let's go ahead and pop the hood, take a look around, see what we can find. Okay, I'm going to let you take a look and see the same thing that I'm looking at. As I said, it's the 3.0 liter V6. A little corrosion there on the battery cable. That's something we should address while we're out here. Any vehicle service information I might need is up here. The stickers are still in place, so that's a good thing. A little hot, I don't think I'm going to crack that yet. So let's take a look here in the bottle. And not sure how well it's showing up, but that's low. In fact, that's very low. So the coolant reservoir is low. Take a look here at the ignition wires. While not brand new, they have been replaced. These aren't OEM. A quick routing to make sure that they're not rubbing on anything or touching anything hot, especially whichever cylinder is number 2, and we'll figure that out in a minute. Of course, if you're an avid Ford guy, you already know what number 2 is. All right, let's take a look at the other side here and see anything about the routing on those wires. I don't see anything rubbing against anything hot that could result in a problem. We'll pull the dipstick out. We're not going to check the level since I got the camera in one hand. Well, it's kind of obvious. I think that's low. So there's a problem. Don't see any contaminants. There's no chocolate milk appearance, though. So that's a plus. That's something else we want to note in our observations. See if we can do this one-handed. There we go. Belt looks fairly new. Nothing more than what I would expect. Don't really think you need to start checking the air filter or anything else right now. I've got a pretty good feel for this. Let's just check that oil fill cap real quick. Make sure there's nothing hiding under it. No. All right. Well, we have a few visual tidbits of information, plus the codes we got. We're off and running. Okay, so here's where we're at so far. I know they've got a P0302 cylinder 2 misfire code. I also have a P0455 evap system large leak detected code. One thing I learned early on is that maybe that's the generic name for these particular codes, but that doesn't always mean that's exactly what they are. Sometimes there's more to it than that. I need to know more about the code definitions, the code criteria, what are the enabling conditions that allows ECM to test for these codes, how the ECM actually does test for these codes. A lot of unanswered questions, including just making sure I'm familiar with how the systems in this particular model work, the fuel system, the injection system, the overall engine management system. I need all of this information before I can actually plot an efficient path in my diagnostic process. And to do that, I need to go look at the service information. In this case, I'm going to use MotoLogic. It's part of the Motoshop suite of technology tools and fairly new to the service information system. So how about we go inside where it's a little cooler and see what we can find out about the vehicle. Before we start ripping parts off, exchanging parts, performing a lot of useless pinpoint tests, it's vitally important to know exactly how the system that you're working on operates. So I'm going to go to my service information system here, see what I can learn about the systems, the 302 and the 455 trouble codes, and any other clues that might be helpful in designing that diagnostic process as we go along. All right, as I said, we're going to use MotoLogic for this one. So we'll get signed in. And the first thing I'd point out to you that's kind of a nice feature is the last 10 cars that were searched, along with the last 10 articles that were referenced for each of those vehicles, is maintained in history here. So if you're a busy shop and you've got more than one tech using one computer or one service information terminal, this is kind of nice because if one guy steps in to look something up for his car, it's a lot easier to go back to pull up what you were looking at before he took over the terminal. So it can save you some time there. I'm just going to start at the top though. Here in the drop-down menu, we're going to start from scratch. Again, it's a 99 Ford Ranger. So pull that up. And there's the Ranger. And then we comes to this search box here at the top right. I guess the first thing that you should point out is that for this particular model, there are 3,876 individual pieces of information related to the 99 Ford Ranger. The other nice thing about MotoLogic, all of this information is OE. It's the same service information you'd find on the OE service site, and it's farmed continuously, so updates are very quick. Another nice feature with this particular product, any interactivity, any hyperlinks that are part of the OE system are maintained in MotoLogic. So all the links, as you'll see as we go along, all of the related links are active. Again, saves us a lot of time in finding the information we want. Now back to the search bar here at the top, and we'll get rid of that. Back at the search bar at the top, it's like the Google search. We're going to start typing in our question or the component system that we're looking up. So let's start with the misfire code. We'll put in P0302, and once we have that in there, you can see that it pulls up a drop-down window as we go to populate or help us populate that. I could just easily have clicked on the 302, hit search, and now that narrows it down. I've got 3 pieces of information here in the system for me to reference. Let's take a look too here on the side. I want to point this out. If there's something in there that you can't find, you have an issue with, again, a nice feature, I can contact their support crew very quickly, just clicking on the button. I've done that a time or two, gotten very quick response, usually under 30 minutes, and have an answer for whatever question I was looking at. So if there's something there that for whatever reason I can't find, I can let them know, and they'll help me dig up the information I need. The information is broken down, the 3 types. I have 3 related to diagnostics, but there are others. No technical service bulletins. There's a big fat 0 there to any related to the misfire code, so nothing to worry about there. No diagrams or locators that in this particular issue I have to worry about at this point, so don't need to look at those. Let's see what we got here. We have the misfire detection monitor. This is going to tell me exactly how this system works. So when I pull that up, I'm looking again at the OEM information on how the misfire detection monitor on the Ford, how that works. I'm going to take time to not necessarily print that out, but I'm going to take the time to read that so I have a full understanding of what's involved in the system. I do have some basic information already. I know, for example, that this looks at the crank speed, looks for any fluctuations in crank speed. So what does that think I might tell you? What if there's a problem with the crank sensor? What if there's a problem with the reluctor? Well, what if something's loose, excessive vibration? There's some other things that could affect that misfire code other than a true misfire. So again, that's one of those little factoids I'm going to stick in the back of my mind. Over here on the left, now I've got all the contents of the service information system. So if I want to go back and check anything I want, I can use this pretty much as the table of contents. And I can explore what's available in MotoLogic even further. All right, going to go back to the search results. The next item, that's a diagnostic trouble tree. So again, I'm going to look that over, see if there's anything there that's I'm not already accustomed to. Is there a subsystem that's related that I didn't know about? And then I'm going to put that in my notes and make sure I include that in laying out my diagnostic plan. The third item, well, there's all my trouble codes. And it gives me the starting points to wherever I need to go to diagnose that. Now here's another nice feature with MotoLogic I want to point out quick. Quick specs, right up there at the top. Choose the 3.0 liter. And now I've got all of these basic quick stuff that I might need just for routine service. I've got belt riding diagrams, I have lift points, so if I need to put it up in the air, I don't do that wrong. Basic specs, where the VIN plates are located. Here's something I'm going to need to know for my misfire troubleshooting. What's the firing order? In this case, 142, 536. And how's the layout? Well, here's the front of the engine, so that means 1, 2, and 3 are all three of those are on the right side of the engine, passenger side. 4, 5, and 6 are over on the driver's side. Again, I got the spark plug checks, I got fuel pressure specs, all that stuff that I would need to get to that I would want to get to kind of quickly, all in one place. So that makes things pretty easy too. All right, so that gives you some basic information on misfire. Let's go to the evap code. So we're going to plug that in, hit search. Okay, now here I have 2 technical service bulletins and then 4 items related to the diagnostics. What about the components? Might be nice to know where this stuff is and what it looks like, right? Well, let's change that a little bit. See if that'll turn it up. And these are all kind of like keyword searches, so it's very friendly to use. Of course, you can see here my internet speed isn't that much, but okay, here we go. We got all kinds of stuff now. I've got 204 diagrams in here. I may have to run through it a little bit to find exactly what I need. We'll just look at those. Or locators, even better. Yeah, here we go. Location component. Where's the evap canister purge valve in the 3.0? There we go. That's better. Okay. So now I can find all of that. All right. Let's go back to our PO 455. Again, you can see how it auto-populates as I go. So I can just click on it if I want. And then I'm going to take a look here at how this system works. Now, if you're familiar with evap system diagnosis at all, you know that especially on the older ones, often these vehicles had to sit pretty much overnight before the evap monitor would even begin to think of running. And there's certain drive conditions, very specific driving conditions that need to be met. There has to be so much fuel in the tank. I think typically it's at least 20%. quarter tank to 3/4 of a tank, something in that range, before that test will run. So there's a lot of factors that I need to know about, and some testing methods. So I'm going to check this. I'm going to go back and take a closer look at these technical service bulletins to see what they can tell me, as well as look at the trouble trees to get a feel for exactly what's going on with that system. Is there some nuance that maybe I'm not familiar with in my other evap emissions testing experience that I would want to know about before I tackle this one? Well, boy, there was sure a lot of information in Motor Logic. It's going to take me a little while to digest all that information, but that's what I got to do next. Take the time, digest all that information, and then I can formulate the rest of my diagnostic process, what steps I want to take next in going after these two trouble codes. And that's where I'm going to pick up with you in this next special edition of The Trainer.